Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Short-Term Rentals with the one and only Tijani.
What's goody?
And today we're going to talk about posting your listing like a pro. Because I feel like as a beginner, it's so easy to make so many mistakes when we're going about like making sure that our listing is up in Airbnb. And it can even be a little bit scary as well because we see so many competitors in the same area. So first of all, when it comes to the titles, what are some of the keywords that you use and why?
Yeah, so when it comes to your listing title, and I like to preface this by saying that your listing title today honestly isn't as important as it was just last year or even earlier this year, because Airbnb changed up the algorithm and it changed up the way that the guest actually views the listing to where they don't even see the listing title anymore. So your listing is solely based on the merit of the listing itself. Your chances of getting booked is solely based on the merit of the listing itself. They took out the title. So we talk a lot about the photos. This is why the photos are so crucial, because it's the photos that's going to get them clicking. The titles are gone. You can still have a title. They'll see a title once they click the listing, which I think still having a title probably, still helps kind of with the SEO a little bit. But we just don't know how much it affects, as people don't even see it anymore. So I personally don't think that the titles are as relevant as they were a few months ago, or even last year. But still, still have a good title, because sites, you only have a few characters to use in your title. A lot of people like to title their unit, have like this name or a unique name or something like that. We don't do that. We just state like dope things about it. King bed, fast Wi-Fi, 4K TVs, pool.
And that's on your title?
That's just the title.
Oh, wow.
It's like king bed, and we put like that line break, fast Wi-Fi, line break. Like that's a title. So hitting them with the haymakers at the title, and those are the things that are important. If you have fast Wi-Fi, put fast Wi-Fi on your title.
That's right.
If you have a king bed, because a lot of folks don't get king beds, it's a nice amenity to have. Put king bed on your title.
Just highlight them.
Highlight them. So that's how I recommend titling your property.
Now, you also mentioned that pictures are the way to go now for short-term rentals. But when you began your career, you didn't have a professional photographer, did you? So what are the tips and tricks that you used when you began your career for making sure that your pictures were good enough for your listing? Oh,
full transparency. I had professional photography for my very first listing.
Oh, wow.
I did, but I took cell phone photos first before it came out, because I was so eager to list it. So what I did was, the photographer said, okay, it's gonna, give him 3 to 4 days. I said, man, I want to list it now. So I took the photos with my cell phone and I listed it that way, right? I didn't get any bookings that day I listed it, but I got 2 bookings the very next day.
Oh, wow.
But you got to also understand, this was back in 2017. You know what I'm saying? So, Airbnb wasn't as known as it is now. Everybody was making money on Airbnb just because the demand was there, and it wasn't as popular as it is now. So, but I still, once the photos came in, then I replaced it with those photos. You know what I mean? And then I've taken professional photography there again, because we've replaced the couch there, right? We replaced a few furniture pieces, because one thing that we stopped doing in our listing is putting furnishings in our listings that have wooden bases. We don't do any wooden bar stools, no wooden dining chairs. We don't do that. So we always make sure that even our beds, we don't do no wooden beds. All of our slates, even if it has a wooden slate, we gut it and we put metal slates inside. Oh, wow. And our bar stools are all metal slates. So once we replaced that furniture, we retook photos professionally again for that listing. So so I would say those are, when it comes to that listing title, it's not as pertinent as it was before, but still, when you title your listing, hit them with the bullet points, don't try to come up with this, some cool name for your listing. Like, that's what a lot of people do. They just come up with like a unique name and that's their title. No, it's not helping you. It really isn't. Right.
Because it doesn't even describe your listing.
It really doesn't.
And now when it comes to the photography, I love it how you mentioned be updated with your pictures, because it's so easy to have, I've been having this listing for like 10 years. I'm just going to get the same pictures. Right? But no, I mean, you could have changed the couches, you could have changed the stove. And when your guests see the pictures that you're having on your listing, but then they get to the apartment, they're like, the heck, this looks totally different. Yeah. And
it's so much that we learned from that first listing. Even like the fans. our fans, we used to have like the drawstring fans where you pull it.
Oh wow!
And the fans will turn on. Where you switch you switch on a switch, then you pull the fan, and you pull the other string for the light. And so that's a standard fan these days. But we stopped using those fans. So even I replaced all the fans because guess what? Pull it too hard.
Right.
And it happened on 2 out of the 4 fans that we had in there.
No.
So guess we'll pull it and then it'll snap the string off, and then now the fan is just permanently on, or the lights have to stay on. Now you got to operate it with the switch. You can't operate it from here again. And you know, and so it could be, we replace a lot of stuff and then we retook the photos again.
That's right. And now it was interesting how you also mentioned to have quite a bit of precise details. So what are some of the details that you would say we can't forget from our listing?
So in your listing, for one, when you list a property on Airbnb, once you hit publish, you're not done. You're only halfway done, because certain amenities, you can't update your amenities. You can't, there are a lot of things that you need to fill out that you can't get to unless you publish first.
Oh, wow.
And so a lot of times you have to fill everything out. Airbnb expects, they want a complete profile, Again, check your amenities. We always make sure that our amenities are updated as well, because a lot of new things that they added to make sure that you can check off. And so with that, make sure your listing description is on point too. I always tell people, use bullet points, be concise. What we do is we say a nice, maybe 3-line paragraph to start, just a brief description about the property, then everything else is bullet points. And so utilize the about, and then utilize the space, because the about is you're limited to your characters, but the space you're not really limited. You're not really limited, and they expand it to where you can type out a lot. But that's where you really want to make sure that you use the bullet points and you're concise. You're not too wordy. Professional photography, right? These are things that you want to make sure that you do to your listing, for sure. Don't skimp on that. I say that, you know, the photography is probably the most important thing you can do to your listing, because understand that there's a pecking order in what makes someone decide on which listing to go with.
That's
The
right.
number one decision maker are the photos, because they fall in love with the photos first, then they click the listing, then they read your reviews. That's why reviews is number 2. Once they read your reviews, then they say, okay, let me see what this listing is about. Then look at your listing. So listing description is number 3. Sometimes they'll look at your listing description first, and then they'll get to the reviews, but your reviews is more so the deciding factor over your listing description. So reviews are second, but they fall in love with the photos first, right? And don't be afraid to use color. Use pop of color. It's properly known and documented that pops of red make people stop. When you have red pop, or like a deep orange, or something that you make people stop and say, what the heck? So at red, they stop and they explore further. So don't be afraid to use pops of color as well. So those are things that you want to make sure that you do. And I also say this, you also have to check off like safety measures as well that you have in your listings. So once you highlighting safety measures, one of the things that's on there is carbon monoxide detector. It's going to ask you, do you have a carbon monoxide detector at your home?
Oh, wow.
All of my units that I own that are short-term rentals all have electric rent. There's no gas fixtures in any one of them. The water heaters get electric. Your range is electric. The AC is electric. And so we don't need a carbon monoxide detector because we don't even have a gas fixture, but we still check off that we have it. Why? Because your listing looks bad just because if you say no, they just scratch it out and they gray it out.
Oh, no.
And so your guests don't know that you don't have any gas fixtures. They don't know. They're just looking like, dang, they're not even fully prepared. They're just going to assume that you just don't have it, just even though they're going to assume that you're supposed to have it, but you don't. And so now that turns them off.
And now they're going to think you're cheap.
And now you're cheap, or they feel like you're cutting corners or something like that.
Oh,
right?
no.
So even though if you don't need a carbon monoxide detector, highlight that you have it. Just put that you have it. And if you need it, if you have any gas fixture, make sure that you check that you have it. And make sure
that you do have
that you actually do have it. 100%.
And I feel like it also comes down to the experience that you're providing to your guests, because they want to make sure that they're going to be safe. I mean, they're traveling and having fun outside of the Airbnb that they're about to rent. But if they're going to come home being like, oh no, what if there's a fire while I'm sleeping? That's not going to give them peace of mind. They're not even going to choose your listing at that point. Now, what about certain aspects of the neighborhood? Do you also include that within your listing?
Yes, yes. So there's actually a section that says, what does it say? It says either neighborhood or it says about the neighborhood, about the neighborhood, or something like that. About your surrounding area. Something, I think it's about the neighborhood. I forgot how they word it, but that is your chance to go in on what's dope about your area. That's your chance, because it's like there's a bunch of things that people can read, about you, about the space, about your house rules. One of the things they can read about is the neighborhood, your surrounding area. So yes, there are definitely opportunities for you to let your neighborhood shine. And I'll say this about your neighborhood. My very first short-term rental, quick story. Well, it's not a story, but my very first short-term rental, I was in an area, a neighborhood that's on the come up, but wasn't attractive. The neighborhood itself was not, the area perfect in terms of location, just less than 10 minutes from downtown, less than 10 minutes from the medical center, just outside of Midtown, like perfect, great location, highly gentrifying area, highly transitioning area. But still, you drive down there, if you're from out of town, you don't know what you don't know, you're gonna be like, man, what the heck is going on here? You know what I'm saying? So is this, you would think that listing is gonna look like the area represents it, right? So I was so scared to list that first property. But I'm glad I did, because I learned something that day. I learned that proximity matters more. Location matters more than the actual aesthetics of the neighborhood. Now, I'm not saying you just put it in the neighborhood that's not what's up. The neighborhood matters. I'm not saying it don't matter. It matters, but the location matters more. And so people were still booking it because of where it was located, even though the location wasn't that great. It's from a neighborhood perspective, like from an aesthetic perspective. Now, what people started doing was they will leave me a 5-star review, but when it says location, it'll be like 2 or 3 or 4. They won't leave 5 when it comes to location. So I started getting ahead of it. And that's what I recommend anybody that finds themselves in that situation, to where the location is amazing, but that area is still kind of like maybe a little rough and it's up and coming. What we did was we just got ahead of it. We put it in the listing now. We said, hey, this area is transitioning, right? On your way in, we kind of made it a joke a little bit, and you might be a little bit skeptical on your way in, but trust me, this listing is one of the best decisions you ever made, especially if you're looking for a perfect location to the downtown, whatever the case. That's kind of how we worded it, right? And what that did was it allowed us that the reviews stopped, because now they know what they're getting into, right? Now they know what to expect. So when they're driving through and they see that, okay, he kind of said that we kind of should expect this. The other aspect of that is, now if the neighborhood is rough, make sure that unit is beautiful. Make sure that unit, like you come with it on that unit, because if they're driving in, they say a rough neighborhood or whatever the case may be, but they get there and they say, okay, this is nice. It's actually really nice in here. That happens, and that can happen. So don't be discouraged if you're kind of in an area like that, because you can still run a bag up and make a lot of money.
That's right. I mean, you can make your listing competitive by making your actual property super competitive.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what the rest of the environment is going to be looking like, because your property is going to look super fine. Now, when it comes also to the aesthetics and the pictures, do you have a specific order where you put your pictures on the listing?
So that's a really good question. We have an order, but that's just for us. It doesn't have to be like what your order is. The most important thing with pictures is remember, they fall in love with the photos first. And a lot of folks book Airbnb. Now the way Airbnb has it, it's just the photos that you see. If you book it on a lot of people book Airbnbs like on their computer, because they usually tend to have multiple Airbnbs open that they're interested in, and they're comparing them, right? And so when people are booking that way, what they see is the first 5 photos. And that's what's important. Your first 5 should be your best photos. And your primary photo should be your absolute best photo. That should be the one that really highlights your listing. And so that your primary photo, that's your moneymaker right there. And then your 4 photos after that should be different in terms of every room. Don't have your primary photo to be a nice photo of your living room, and your next photo is just another angle of your living room. And then your next photo is just a different angle of your living room. Like, no, if the primary is a living room, make the next one like your bedroom. If you have a pool, take the next one, make sure it be a pool. Your dining area, right? Like, have variety. For your first 5 should not be the same room. If you can help it, it shouldn't be the same room, and have variety. And that's going to definitely help you stand out as well.
That's right, because and also you can do some research on the other listings that are within your area. Let's see what these other ones are lacking of.
Exactly.
They're just showing a whole bunch of pictures of the living room. Well, let me show you a picture of the awesome pool that I have in the backyard and nobody knows about.
Exactly.
Because those other listings, they may have all of those amenities, but they're not marketing them well.
Right.
So I feel like as a beginner, it's easy to just like put all the pictures just the way that the photographer gave them to me.
Yep.
Just
dump them in
just
there.
dump them all. No, but it's also crucial to
Very
think
strategic.
about the guests.
I try to. What we do is we try to give them a tour of the home through our pictures.
That's a good
right? Almost like you walk in, okay, living room area, okay, you're gonna walk into the dining, the kitchen, okay, the bedroom. We like to pop a bedroom in, living room, then we'll go bedroom photos, then we'll go dining, then we'll go another bedroom, then we'll go kitchen, then we'll go bathroom.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? So we try to just mix it up that way. Yeah.
That's right. And it literally is as if they are walking through that listing. They might be on their computer, but they feel like they're inside of the place already.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the other aspects of the description or the listing itself is the house rules. Do you include your house rules in your listings?
Oh yeah, 100%, 1,000%, 2,000%. You have to include it in your listing. You know, matter of fact, not only do we include our house rules in our listing, when somebody books with us and our automated confirmation message goes out, one of the questions, the first question is it thanks them and confirms their reservation. Hey, this is your reservation on this date. This is your check-in time. You check out on this date. This is your checkout time. Thank you so much. It has some good information on it. And one question it asks is, have you read and accept the house rules?
Whoa.
Have you read it? Not only have you read it, but have you accepted it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually going to help you a lot when you file a claim. So say they break it. Say they break something in your house rule. You're trying to file a claim to get your money back, and they're fighting back, whatever. You file a claim with Airbnb. You can say, hey, they read the house rules. And they read and confirmed it. They accepted that they read the house rules. And that's just going to help your case a little bit better. We also do this when somebody sends a request to book as well. Mm-hmm. So they send a request. Sometimes if you don't have instant booking on in your listing, people could just send a request to book instead, in which you have to approve that reservation at that point, versus an instant booking to where they just book it instantly and they already confirmed the reservation. So you can have that setting on and off in your listing, of course. And so when they send a request to book, before we even approve it, we ask the same question. Have you read the house rules? And do you accept it? And then when they say yes, then we go, okay, now we accept your reservation.
That's right, because I feel like not everyone reads everything. Like I know plenty of my friends that they don't even read the labels on the back on how to cook their noodles on the microwave. And just like everyone else, like, I mean, they might be missing that huge important section, which are the rules. Yes. But now when it comes to the rules, how do you know if you worded your rules correctly? Because you don't want to sound too soft that they trash out your property, but you also don't want to sound too mean that they're like, oh my gosh, I'm scared of that person. I don't even want to book my room there. What's that middle ground?
I don't know if there is a middle ground, honestly. I say be as stern as possible. It should sound a little scary, honestly. Your house rules should be a little scary. And honestly, if people are looking at your house rules, they'll be like, oh my God, I don't want them there anyway. Mm-hmm. Because if you have good intentions for my property, you're not going to do anything bad. You're not throwing a party. You're not going to have any issues with my house rules. Not one. Right. You know what I mean? If you're actually going to take care of that property, you mean well about the property, you're not going to have any issues with my house rules. They're just stern. They're just stern. It doesn't. I'm not cussing you out. I'm not sounding mean. I'm not saying that if you don't do this, I'm not doing anything. I'm not saying anything crazy. I'm just clearly spelling out what not to do. That's putting the price to pay if you do it, right? And that's really what it is. And if people don't have bad intentions for your property, then you'll be in good shape. You know, they're not. And if somebody decides not to book my listing because of a house rule, praise God.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord. I just dodged a bullet. Most likely you dodged a bullet. So I don't think that there's a middle ground. I don't agree that there's a middle ground. I agree. I believe that you should be very stern in your house rules and make it very clear. And put a price tag on it for breaking it as well.
That's true. And I feel like it also becomes kind of like a filter at that point for the target audience that you want, not the people that are going to be trashing out your property, because then again, it's your business. You want to make sure that you protect your business as much as you can. Any last steps for us to have the best posting for our listing?
Well, listen, if you implement everything that we talked about here today, you know, your listing itself, making sure you have professional talking, making sure your listing description is concise, your house rules, you know, if you implement a lot of the things that we talked about, you'll be in pretty good shape, even at the very beginning of your listing. right?
Even
So
if you have just one room.
even if you have just one property, right? And I think having one listing, that first listing is very important, because I always tell people your first listing is going to set the tone for your business. How you treat that first listing is how you're going to treat the rest of them. So really cherish that first listing as like, look, this is the foundation of my entire business. So yes.
That's right. Thank you so much again,
No
TJ.
worries.
And thank you to our audience. And thank you for staying tuned to this episode. So now you can go ahead and list your property for the first time ever. And it's going to kill it, because now you have all the tips and tricks that you need to list your property like a pro. So we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.